Hello, everybody, fellows at RCMU, East, West, everyone online. We're starting a brand new series, and unfortunately, there's something that happened that we need to discuss because it takes us to where we need to talk about. As many of us know, if you paid attention at all to the news in the past week or two, actually probably 2 weeks, that it was talking about it, was the hurricane that had been heading for the Bahamas and then got to the Bahamas and then seemed to even stay over the Bahamas. And now we have pictures of the damage that it has done. I mean, I think it's normal for you and I to watch the news and hear about damage that are hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. But when you look at the devastation that is left in the wake of that kind of a thing, it's haunting. Crazy haunting. You and I, we don't ourselves have hurricanes where we're at, but we do have storms. We're used to different storms, and Katie and I will often go to the beach, take the family to the beach, and we love to go down to Florida and relax. And it's funny because the places that we stay, or even the commercials on the TV, talk about hurricanes and storms all the time. It feels like they're constantly advertising and prepping for people. Hey, this could come, so be ready. And there's hurricane ratings. If you don't know this, you can get special shutters that come down on and cover up your windows and your doors and protect your home. There's ratings that they use as benchmarks to judge the stability of a structure, to make sure that if a hurricane comes, based on the type of hurricane, this is the kind of hurricane it can withstand, and it's not gonna implode or fall apart. And this is normal for people on the coast. I couldn't help but, as I saw honestly, sad pictures of what the hurricane did, I thought about what you and I were going to begin talking about this weekend. We're going to begin talking about family. Whether you're single or you have a small family, big family, whatever, we all have people in our lives that we might even call family. And people that are close to us that we may live with or that we surround ourselves with, that we function with. It brought me to a question that I think things like hurricanes and storms bring up. What kind of environment is your family built for? I mean, the folks in Florida and probably even in the Bahamas have these hurricane ratings, and they build based on that environment. Sometimes hurricanes are so big and horrific that, well, frankly, nothing can withstand it. A structure is a structure. In fact, I grew up in Kansas where we had tornadoes, and I remember going to the basements, and you go to the basement, and you would regularly look out this little small rectangle window, and you'd look out and watch a tornado just not too far away obliterate a neighborhood, and it would freak us out. And I remember touring neighborhoods after a tornado went through just to see the damage it had done. In South Dakota, we have hailstorms and wind that can do some pretty significant damage. Houses are typically built, and there are codes that are in place in certain environments around the nation, around the world, that are paying attention to the environments that they're in. And it brought me thinking, well, what if families began to have this conversation? What if you and I took the conversation that our home needs to be stable, that our home needs to be strong, that our home needs to be built to last? If that could be, then what if it applied to our family, our marriages, our relationship with our kids and the people that are around us? What if we plugged it into that? And I think we should. And in fact, we are. I don't know if you'd be willing, but I'm going to ask a favor. We're going to spend 5 weeks. We're going to spend 5 weeks looking at different pieces of code that you should press into your family to make it built to last, to make sure that whatever environment is going on the outside of you, whatever circumstances you're facing, that you don't have to implode and be wiped out as a family. That you could actually land in a way you go, we are doing okay, even though the outside is horrific. So to teach on this, I need to take you to a place in history that is, best described as chaos. There's other words that might fit. Narcissistic, completely arrogant, immoral. I mean, I can go down a long list, but it was chaotic. It was chaos. It was a mess during what I want to share with you. It was people were just making horrible decisions. In fact, if you ever want to do your own study, there is a place in the Bible, it's called a book, and it's known as Judges, which, I mean, just calling something Judges is, I mean, kind of intense. Judges, well, frankly, Judges is full of some of the most horrific things written in all of the Bible. It's got stuff in there that I frankly don't want to talk to you about right now because, well, there's young ears. There are things done that are recorded in the book of Judges that, like, you would see it if you just looked at it, you'd say, "Oh, chaos, absolute, utter chaos." And I want to take you to the final part of the book of Judges that spends chapter after chapter detailing chaos. And there is, in essence, a summary of all that played out. Let me show it to you. Then the people of Israel departed by tribes and families. Okay? This is after horrific stuff that you can just go read about. It's absolute chaos. Then the people of Israel departed by tribes and families, and they returned to their own homes. Okay, all right. In those days, Israel had no king. No king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. Ooh. All the people did whatever they thought was right in their own eyes. It wasn't about like an overarching thing. It was like, hey, here's what I think is a good thing to do. That's what it's saying, right? Historians, not people necessarily in the Bible, historians of the time knew about these people, and what's been documented about this time that I'm telling you, that I'm reading you in Judges, these people who've decided, hey, we're going to live in chaos, and we're just going to do whatever we want based on what we think is okay. Historians label this time, and they call it individualism. Here's what they mean by individualism. There is no fixed principle. This is how people were functioning. Basically saying, hey, there's no fixed thing for any of us. It's whatever you want for yourself, do it. Whatever I want for myself, I'll do it. And the way to function that, because at first you're like, well, okay, that's not sure. The only way to function there is basically say, I'm going to do what I want. You show me grace for whatever it is. You do whatever you want, and I'll show you grace for whatever you do. Basically saying whatever you think is true and good is, and I'm going to stay out of your business. I'm going to give you grace. Do the same with me. The problem is that model of living, individualism. There is no fixed principle. In other words, you determine your own principles in life, and whatever you think is right is right. The problem is that's not at all how Jesus functioned. You might be identifying with it going, hey, I kind of like that. I kind of like that approach. And that's not what Jesus did. And we talk frequently that if you need a model on how to live life, Jesus. So let me tell you what Jesus did. Jesus led with grace without compromising truth. He led with grace. He saw people who were doing things that he didn't really agree with, didn't think it was good, and he gave them grace. But he didn't compromise the truth, the absolute principles that don't change, they don't evolve, they don't fluctuate between generations, they are not outdated, they are not contemporary, they are not traditional, they are not contemporary in a way that we're like, oh, that's cool, that's good. No. Jesus led with grace without compromising truth. Jesus over and over and over again said this, and he would point to say, this is truth. We live in a world now that struggles with this. Struggles where you and I think, well, I just am supposed to give grace and receive grace. And well, truth is really, up for debate. This is leaking, not just into an individualism kind of thinking, because there are people who are like, this is what I think, but we don't just stay with one, we create a tribe. We create a tribe where we would say, hey, this is what we think is best, and leave us alone. And we begin to segregate ourselves. And many of us have done this right now. In fact, if you've been in school already this year, you probably slowly begin to find your crowd that believes and thinks the way you do, and that's not bad. But then we begin to mistreat the people on the outside of our tribe, outside of our family. Families do the same thing. We begin to drift into something because it's popular or because we're just in the mood for it. And I'd like to make an observation. The reason we're even doing this series, families are being built based on trends rather than truth. Right now, amongst us, I face the same temptation you face, and we all wrestle with this, I think, whether you've got a family of just you and some buddies, or you've got kids and a spouse and all that. Even when you involve your parents and even grandparents. Families right now are being built based on trends, looking around saying, ooh, I like that, but that's yeah, and then take a little bit of that, and we begin to build ourselves, not something that's going to last, but it's on this trend. It's what others are approving and agreeing with, and what seems and feels right, rather than, hey, is that true actually? Is that proven? Is that good? Families are being built based on trends, based on feelings. In case you've forgotten already where we started, I'll take you back because it's not the first time this has happened. Then the people of Israel departed by tribes and families, and they returned to their own homes. In those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right. Whatever seemed right. Whatever seemed right. We don't have time for me, and I also don't want to breach confidentiality. But I am consistently brokenhearted over marriages and families that I see falling apart because they began to do whatever was right in their own eyes, and they began to forsake what is true and what they knew to be true, and now that they are in brokenness, now they know that was true. You know, historians use these words, big words, pretty words, individualism, right? What do you think God thinks about this moment I'm reading to you, where they did whatever was right? What's God's take? I can tell you what God's take is. Even though God was king, they were their own boss, and that was a problem. It was. And if you have any dream, if you have a family now, or maybe one day you want to have a family and you're like, I want to build this thing to last. If you do, don't do this. Don't become your own boss. Not when it comes to what you're going to build relationships off of and build your faith off of, and what you're going to build a family off of. There's actual proof that when we begin to go after what seems right, we begin to devolve. We begin to just basically jack life up. In fact, for those of you who are historians or enjoy this kind of, hey, what's really going on? Now, it's not what the news is saying, but what's really going on? I'll show you. Here's the cycle, because there's a cycle. This is not new again. First generation, whatever that first generation is, there's typically strong leadership. There's economic prosperity. Progress is important. Like, hey, we've got to get to that point. We've got to achieve. We've got to do some things. This is important. And there's spiritual values. That's typically, if you were to isolate, you'd find this generation that would do that. Well, then the next generation comes along, and they inherit what the previous generation built. It's not earned. I'm not suggesting that that's wrong. I'm just showing you historically what happens, the cycle that we get into. The appetite for risk is low because they've been handed something. So risking for more, it's diminished a little bit. status quo because of that. Seems like the right thing to do. Like, hey, let's preserve. And tradition, that's just, let's keep doing what we've been doing. Let's literally, like we've been doing it, and I'm used to it, and I like it. Let's keep doing that, and that actually becomes a problem. Then you get to the next generation. And they become idle and insecure because they have not risked much at all, achieved much at all, and there's no vision because they've not really had to do much of anything like that. Meaning is confused as what is life even about, because I've never had challenges and problems and things break and risks and failures, and identity is questioned. If you're like, this sounds like today, yep, it is. And values are rejected because they were handed down without, here's why this is a value. Some of you are already thinking, sure hope the fourth generation does something. Well, it's not necessarily how it always works. In essence, we keep devolving. We keep actually getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until someone, and historically here's what happens, until someone or a group of people refines the truth. Not the trends, not the, well, that's true for me. No, they find out like, hey, we rejected this. We didn't think it was a universal truth or an absolute truth, but then someone refines the truth. If you go back to the first generation, strong leadership, prosperity, progress, spiritual values. As you contemplate if you would like maybe this to be a part of your family or your life, not in the impure ways, but in the ways that benefit you, your family, and those around you, and the world itself, and honor God, if you ever wanted something like this, you've got to refine the truth that they built this on. And there is truth. And should you refine it and apply it? Let me give you an example. Years ago, years ago, there was what was called the Ark of the Covenant. If you've ever heard of Indiana Jones, you've seen it in there. Now, if you never have, you probably still have heard of the Ark of the Covenant. Some think it's fictional. It's not fictional. It's actually this, I'm just going to not do an adequate job, but describe this giant box that was gold and filled with things that were very meaningful, and the whole thing represented the presence of God. And God held them accountable to this. In fact, they would take this ark, this box, and they would take it wherever they would go. If they were traveling in this, they would take it where they would go. The problem was there were rules. There was a code on how to carry the box. If you carried the box incorrectly, you died. Seems extreme, but that's exactly what happened. There were times that they were carrying it incorrectly and it began to tip, and someone would try to support it with their hands, and you weren't ever allowed to touch it. If you touched it, you died. And that's exactly what happened. Over and over and over again. People would touch it or mess with it and die. They would not follow the truth. They would redefine, like, well, this is good for me, this is true for me, or this is what should be, and they would die. Over the course of time, finally a guy said, hey, there's a code. There's truth. Here's what he says. I think this is what we're showing you. Then he commanded, this is King David commanding everyone, no one except the Levites may carry the ark of God. Now, he's not decreeing this himself as a first timer going, hey, I'm just making something up for everybody. He's actually saying, hey, there is actually, well, he didn't use this word, but there's a Bible, and it says in there exactly how to carry this. No one except the Levites may carry the ark of God. The Lord has chosen them to carry the ark of the Lord and to serve him forever. This was written in a book. A code. Perhaps there's a link for you and I. Here, if you make up your own code, you risk collapse. That's what these folks have been experiencing. They actually would make up their own code. Well, I can hold it, I can carry it, I can do whatever I want. They would die. Finally, David says, hey, let's do what the code says, and maybe we can build something here. I mean, it would be much like, hey, I'm gonna build myself a little Lego house, and you're like, well, but Well, I just want it to be able to be upside down. I want the roof to be on the bottom, and I want the pool table to be up top, and just you construct your own thing. And you might say, this sounds fun, but with Legos, yeah. But not with a family. I wonder if you've been doing that. If you make up your own code, you risk collapse. Perhaps you've been there where you made up your own code, and all of a sudden you guys as a family got so busy because you kind of made up your own truth. Well, if we do this, that's totally fine. If we do this, that's okay. If we allow this, that's totally fine. And you make up your own code with life, you risk collapse. If you're dating right now, and you're like, hey, one day maybe we'll be married, I don't know. And if you decide to make up, well, this is okay for us because we're different, and you risk collapse. There are universal truths to build on. And if you don't want to land in collapse, if you don't want your marriage to fall apart, your family to fall apart, if you don't want your family to be at odds and crumbling, if you actually want to build a family that's built to last, then listen to some of the things I want to share with you, because it's very simple, but also is going to require a lot of you. You're going to need a mission. You're going to need a why. Now, some of you are like, well, family, why is because everyone else is doing this, it appears, or this is what you do in the stages of life. Don't we do this? We're like, okay, I go to school, and then I eventually get married, and then there's kids, and you're going to need a better why than this is just what I want to do. In fact, I would tell you, mission is a fuel for a family. You need a mission. Now, you can be corny. You can be like, well, we don't have a definitive mission statement. You might have one at work or at your school. Mission is a fuel. And if right now you feel depleted as a family or as a married couple or just even as an individual right now, listen very closely. Perhaps you feel depleted because you've not been living out a mission and you're running on empty. If you've ever run out of gas, it's not fun and slightly embarrassing. When I was in high school, my senior year, I lived with my grandparents. And my grandparents had 2 cars, and they lent me one of the cars. It was a beautiful, beautiful Impala. Now, I don't have a picture of the actual one. This is 300 times prettier than the one that I was driving. Just picture completely rusted, dried out paint. No, it was a beast. In fact, the thing, it either drained, gas just leaked out all over. I don't know what. It probably had a fuel gauge. I never really paid much attention to the fuel gauge. I know that was important, but I didn't. So at the time, it cost $30 to fill that tank. Now, that may be no big deal to you, but, well, frankly, that was over 20 years ago. And so I was a high school student. I didn't love putting $30 of gas in a week, so I tried to not do that. Multiple occasions, I would be driving on the way to school. The car would break down, and I would pull over to the side of the road, go to someone's house or business because we didn't have cell phones, and would call my grandparents and be like, hey, something's wrong with the vehicle. They knew what was wrong with the vehicle. It had no gasoline in it. And this happened multiple times. Embarrassing at the side of the road. Meeting my grandparents every time was so... Here's what I know. This happens in life too, but not just with vehicles, but with families. They run out of gas, they lose their mission, and they begin to fall apart, and they find themselves going, I'm now too ashamed to even engage anyone else. The shame of not taking care of something that you should have taken care of begins to break us out of what we should be involved in. And many of us are either on the verge of or we have run out of gas. I don't know what to do. Mission. That was the breakdown in the generations. How does a generation go from 1 to 2 to 3 and begin to devolve and devolve and devolve? They lost their mission and began to just do life. Our family has a mission. You've seen it. You know it. Our mission is to show people who Jesus is. Yep, that's our family's mission. And this helps us so much. Let me explain how it helps us. I know it's a church's one. If you wonder where the church got it, basically we work together on this because I think a church and a family can have the same mission. And so our mission is to show people who Jesus is. So when our kids come home and maybe one of them has a bad day, we talk about how to engage that the way Jesus would engage it. If I come home and I'm not in the best of moods or whatever, and I'm seeing a crying baby and people in a mess, or I can show them who Jesus is. When Katie and I argue, I know that's a shocker, but when we argue, if you have a mission, you can resolve the argument. Financial decisions in our home are made based on this mission. How does it show people who Jesus is? See, you can stay away from the crashes in life, the trends in life, if you have a mission that honors God. No, I'll get to the point. If you're going to last, you need a mission. Okay, there, I just said it. If you're going to last in life, you need a mission. This is not some leadership talk for a business, or this is not something just for corporate world. This is for you and I and families. If you're going to last, you need a mission. Now, so far, frankly, if you've got a family or you've done this, this is actually not so challenging. I'd like to go after the challenging stuff now. Because anyone could come up with a mission statement. Because, in fact, I've done this. I've seen this in environments where someone's like, oh, you need a mission statement, okay? And you work and you get a mission statement. You're like, I would love the mission statement. And you begin to brand things and put the mission statement in places. And you're like, yeah, we got a mission. There are more mission statements than there are people living out mission statements. It's because worthwhile missions, they require unwavering courage. And that's the tougher part. Do you have the courage to build something that will last? Courage. What I'm finding over and over and over in life is that life is not as foggy as we say it is. Life is not as complicated as we make it. But life requires courage. The courage to make decisions that you do not feel like making. To make decisions that you don't want to make, that are not trendy to make. To lock onto something that others will disagree with. Courage. Families who will say, no, you can participate in that, but you can't participate in that. That requires courage. To manage your finances in a way that honors God requires courage. To make the right choice at the right time requires courage. Worthwhile missions require unwavering courage. If you want to know how to build a family that lasts, you need courage, because courage will help that mission. I love, and many of you know this verse in Joshua. This is my command: be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Perhaps families should take this and apply this to their just normal everyday life. This is a big deal. Do not be afraid or discouraged. Think about right now how many people that you know, marriages, parents, kids in the home, people who are just discouraged or afraid of what they're looking at. And the family model is supposed to help us function this way, but many of us return to our families or live with our families and we are discouraged and afraid. How do you break out of that? Well, strong and courageous. And the only way to do that is you need a mission. In fact, let's dig down even a little deeper and get into your home. Mood or mission? Which one is creating your environment? That's in essence where we started. Mood or mission? Do you remember the folks that I described just in a short verse? They did whatever was right in their own eyes. They basically governed themselves based on their mood, not their mission. Which one is creating your environment? Here's what I know, just basic understanding. We watch news on hurricanes and tornadoes and hailstorms and whatever, flooding, and what we know is we can't control the weather. You and I cannot control the things that happen outside of us. You and I cannot control all of the circumstances that you and I find. But here's what we can control if we have a home. What goes on inside the home? We can control the environment there. We can create an environment that is built on mission not mood. You can't make other people do things, but you can create a mission and run the home on that mission. And many of us need to know, like, how do I actually have a family that's built to last? Step one, get a mission and create that environment in your home. And it will require courage. So here's what I'd like to do. Very simple. If you're willing to commit to this whole series, the next 4 weeks, willing to actually lean into what it looks like to construct a family that's built to last and do amazing things, I'd like to pray for you, but here's what I'm going to ask of you, is that you would stand up right now, because I want to pray for you. So whoever wants to, I just want to pray for you specifically. And I want to pray that God would help you and that you would be open to what he wants to share with you. Okay. Let me pray for you, that you would be willing not only to let God intervene in your life, but that you would actually receive what he wants to do and play this out. That you would go after not just this lofty goal of a good, healthy family, but that you would let God speak to you individually and perhaps change the environment in your family. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, for everyone standing who they indicate, God, that they want you to be a part of their family, to lead them, to guide them. Lord, would you give them wisdom and discernment that I think they crave, but also would you fill their homes with peace and grace and truth. Lord, I pray for us as a church as we go after this in this next month, that, Lord, would you teach us what we need to be taught and give us the courage to live it out. Lord, for those who, talking about family, it brings up wounds and hurts from the past. God, would you comfort them in the midst of this conversation and even help each one of us walk with each other as a family, as a church family. God, we love you. Thanks for letting us be a part of your family. Teach us, Lord. We pray this in your name. Amen.